I think everyone gets a bit emotional when a wrestler that seemingly is gone from the business forever finally makes their comeback. But I think in terms of being actually broken by a return, there's only one time that I can think of when I've nearly blacked out as a result of a wrestling return, and it's WrestleMania 38, of course. Dallas, Texas, and the return of Cody Rhodes. Hopefully, depending on legal things, we can try and show some footage, probably not the audio, of myself and Phil Chambers reacting to Cody Rhodes coming out to answer Seth Rollins' challenge, because it was such a fork in the road for WWE, because I think the general consensus was either it was going to be Cody Rhodes or Shane McMahon. Yeah. And I think the former was probably the best option there, to be perfectly honest. You know, judging all these years later, probably the right call that they made there, because I know we weren't completely out of the woods yet with WWE, but like it was a sign of intent and a glimmer of hope in a very, very dark time for WWE fans. And the reason why I almost blacked out, you might be able to see it on the footage, I forgot to breathe. So obviously the wrestling has more than one royal family. What is it? Yeah, that one. Hits, and it's like it is actually happening. Cody is here. We still weren't sure what match he was going to have. Turned out amazing, obviously, but just even having him come back to WWE was such an incredible moment that me and Phil shouted, screamed, looked around, and I suddenly realised I don't think I've actually inhaled any oxygen for about 30 seconds here, and I sort of stumbled back because, like I say, it was just sort of emblematic of maybe WWE's going to be all right, actually, despite everything. Maybe it's going to be all right. And a mere 2 years later, it was.
So the wrestling return is probably the best thing about pro wrestling. I often think this. I know a lot of the guys have gone for not the more obvious ones, but the ones a lot of people talk about. So I will sneak in there with Sting's return in AEW. Now, there's multiple layers to this, because of course it happened during the pandemic. And I look back now and realize I was not a happy panda during the pandemic. Who was, right? I was very blessed to be doing the YouTube stuff because people wanted to just consume content and be distracted. But it was just a tough time for all of us, like I say. And when Sting came back, I don't know if I'd missed rumours or there just wasn't rumours at all. And of course, he came back at Daly's place, which was nowhere near full. And yet somehow it felt like there was 10,000 people in there. Like the response from the crowd that night was special. And it got me, man. It did. It hit me right in the tum-tum. I kind of did feel tears in my eyes. Why am I even pretending otherwise? I had tears for a reason. But I got emotional about it. And the way he went to each of the corners. Who you look at Darby Allin, looked at Cody Rhodes. Was it Dustin Rhodes who was out there? That doesn't sound like it was right. But whatever. It was awesome, and I went back and watched it time and time again. Shout out to Mikey Ruckus who got that music right. I mean, Sting's music from start to finish, almost perfect every single time. But he had that allure and that legendary status, and he did feel like almost a being out of time. But then the extra part was, he'd been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, said how much this is not really how I wanted to go out. So as far as I'm concerned, from that point until he retired in 2024, Tony Khan booked the best legendary retirement, or at least one of, that we've ever seen, and everybody should use that as a template. So it ruled, it was awesome. It kind of reminded me how much I loved Sting. I'm not saying that I'd lost my fandom, but it just kind of right in my face. And of course, from there, it got better because it started off with cinematic matches, then he was in the ring, then he was throwing stuff through tables, then he had that tag team match, then he was a tag team champion with Darby Allin. I mean, when you do go and watch it again now, it means even more. But it will always be the way. I don't know how many people in there, 500, 400, and it just felt like a filled arena because nobody could believe that Sting was here. And he did get to finish his career off on his own terms, and I'll just say the WWE run wasn't great. No problem with his own, but if you get hit in the head with a sledgehammer, I don't think you should shake the guy's hand afterwards. And the NWO coming out to help Sting, which was the complete antithesis of what the NWO Sting thing was, and the Seth Rollins match was just a shame. I mean, that's wrestling for you. It's a terrifying old beast. But yeah, I love that return, and I go back and watch it all the time. I think it's absolutely fantastic. There is just, to use the stupid words, a vibe to it. And it does get you, and it does make you feel something. I think it's brilliant. And today I can sit here and say that Sting is one of the best of all time. And I think I would have known that anyway. But in that moment, in that entrance, in that allure, it's a stupid word, everybody should hate me, you just feel it.
I got two of them, mate. The 2021 and 2023 returns of CM Punk. First to wrestling and then when he came home, respectively. 2021, you can kind of have one of those nights in wrestling once in a blue moon. It's kind of why you watch all your life, if indeed you do, and hopefully you all do. for nights like CM Punk's return to AEW, the things that are the never say never moments, the things that you almost can't believe your eyes. You do the cartoon, what? Like you kind of feel your body shaking, what? The goosebumps come up, the whole deal. And it delivered beyond anything any of us could have expected. We've talked at length on this channel before about the impeccable job that AEW did of promoting it. You can read Michael Sidgwick's own Wrestling Timelines on that very thing. Certainly a moment worth documenting to that degree. Not just for how well AEW promoted it, but CM Punk's performance of it. And I use that word performance pointedly because he would later go on to admit that it was as much performance as what was real. He knew exactly what the AEW audience wanted to hear as well as what he wanted to say. And typical of CM Punk, he kind of meshed those things perfectly. So even if you were riding the high of simply the entrance and Excalibur's incredible call of it and the atmosphere within the United Centre, we've seen similar situations like that, and then the match or the promo or the moment not quite deliver on that first flush of excitement. No, CM Punk was not going to miss the mark. You know, he was determined to stick the landing. Everything went perfectly. Even the way he took off his hoodie and then sat cross-legged, mimicking the pipe bomb, and wore the t-shirt that was similar. The mention of the ice cream bars, the whole thing. It was delivered to absolute perfection. Ice cream bars. And then, 2023, just when you thought that year, for us wrestling fans collectively, couldn't get any better. It did, and I don't need to say as much as what the visual that exists out there that already provides. Myself and Adam Wilborn doing the stream in this very room, getting caught on camera, the live reaction. Because again, it being CM Punk, even when something seems likely and seems possible, it's not until it actually happens.
Yeah, who could have called it?
We are blessed to work with the one true journalist in pro wrestling.
No.
And even though he was brave enough for once to reveal that he did have the scoop, you still couldn't believe it until it was happening in front of your very eyes. And look, I don't need to recount that incredible night and that performance and everything that it's led to ultimately about CM Punk back in WWE. But probably only with a wrestler like CM Punk do you get the magic of the return of your fave. Twice within 2 years to two separate companies. That's why he's the best. I look forward to doing this video in 2 years' time when it's and then 2027 when he came out on Collision, it blew our minds. He'll be back again one day. It's going to be class. He's the best.
So the wrestling return that broke me emotionally, completely broke me. Broke me then, breaks me now for different reasons, but we'll talk about it. It's Edge. It's Edge's return from 2020. So the two different reasons. So it breaks me now looking back, because of what the era represents. Obviously, 2020, it was one of the only streams I got to do at WhatCulture, in the flesh, just because of what was going on in the world. It was an awesome night. I really enjoyed myself. And then this happened. And so it's a weird, looking back thing, and I get emotional thinking about it. But the actual night itself, we'd all heard the rumblings that Edge could potentially return to wrestling at this show, but I'm very much I'll believe it when I see it kind of guy. I've been burned before by wrestling and by so many things in life. So I was just waiting to see if it actually did happen. And lo and behold, you think you know me, boom, 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 and it happened. And it's weird, when you're doing these kind of live stream things, it can be hard to hear the crowd really, because you're having a chat and doing whatever, and trying to entertain, obviously, in the live stream. But we even heard it in the moment. We were like, wow. And then we lost our minds, obviously, as well. We were popping like crazy. And then you saw his face. You saw Edge's face, acknowledging what was happening. And all these people just giving him his flowers there and then. We never thought we'd see Edge again in a ring. And it was just, I can't remember how many thousands of people were in that arena, that stadium, whatever it was. But they were just going crazy and just giving him love. And he was an emotional dude in that moment. I get a little bit thinking about it now, because it's just, there's something so powerful and moving about watching someone get something back that they thought they'd lost in that way. It's such a unique thing, and it was special. It was really special. It's wrestling at its best, absolute best. And then he went into the match and obviously did his thing, and that was great. Obviously, just seeing him ripped and just kicking ass, and that was fantastic. But just that moment of him just taking it all in, and then hair down and doing the rock and roll kind of thing, it was fantastic, and it's something that still hits me like a spear off a ladder through the heart, to this day. For me, it's a top 5 wrestling moment of all time. Never mind just returns. I just think it's the top 5. It's human. It's such a human, raw, real moment. It's maybe a bit of a shame that it was the peak. It feels like the peak of Edge's entire return run at this point, because yeah, it was a bit questionable at times from there on out, both in WWE and AEW. I mean, we did have Clash at the Castle in Wales where we all lost our minds for him. That was amazing. That was a good time, like, to be there in the flesh. So that was fun. But yeah, that moment I will always cherish. And it was just lovely seeing a good person getting a good moment really there. So yeah, that's the emotional wrestling moment that broke this little man.
Now, I'm going to try and keep this brief, but I know that it's probably not going to be. So this will probably be stuck on the end, and that's fine by me, because the wrestling return that broke me, you have to go all the way back to the 24th of March, 1991. That would be WrestleMania 7, where the main event was Hulk Hogan defeating Sergeant Slaughter for the world title. The real main event for some of us was Macho King Randy Savage versus the Ultimate Warrior, which for my money is Warrior's greatest ever match. Sure, WrestleMania 6 against Hogan is a bigger spectacle, and is a fantastic match itself, and Rick Rude got some very decent matches out of the Warrior, but for me, WrestleMania 7 was Warrior's very best when it comes to in-ring work and the story told as well. So much credit obviously has to go to Randy Savage for that, and props to Warrior, he did his part, but this was at a time when Savage was a heel, the Macho King, as I said, not the Macho Man, and he had the villainous, so easy to hate Queen Sherry at his side. Not just this, but people often overlook that this was a retirement match, largely because Savage lost, but was back in the ring again soon after. In fact, he literally wrestled 6 days later for a joint WWF and Super World Sports Show in Japan, then worked a bunch of Japan live events through the next couple of months, and then returned to work in non-televised WWF matches as well at live events, although that was largely to fill in for the Warrior after he'd been fired. But Savage would formally return to action at Tuesday in Texas in December, storyline-wise begging Jack Tunney to let him come out of retirement to face Jake the Snake Roberts. Anyways, the return that forever gets me, genuinely puts a tear in my eye to this very day, despite having watched it hundreds of times, is the return of Miss Elizabeth at WrestleMania 7. Yes, Liz and Savage had gone their separate ways after WrestleMania 5, and Elizabeth had largely been absent from the company since she managed Hogan and Brutus Beefcake at SummerSlam 89. There was a brief appearance to thwart Sherry Martel at WrestleMania 6, but there she was, sat in the crowd for Randy Savage's potential retirement match at WrestleMania 7. Largely inconspicuous, not sat in the front row or anything like that. I mean, yes, Liz was picked upon by the cameras and referenced in surprise by the iconic commentary team of Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, the greatest commentary team of all time for my liking. And being the ever great heel she was, Sherry Martel, she put the boots to the Macho King after he lost. Sherry, man, another all-time icon, such a pioneer, such a fantastic villain. And as Sherry continued kicking and slapping Savage, finally Miss Elizabeth had seen enough, hopping the rail, hitting the ring, grabbing Sherry, throwing her out the ring. But Savage is on the mat, face down, as Elizabeth tries to pick him up. And he doesn't know it's her, he thinks it's Sherry, so he gets up ready to defend himself, only to see this emotional Elizabeth standing there. And Savage, man, he was always so great at selling moments, of taking enough time to let something sink in, so the audience could see what he was thinking. And here you can see the cogs turning, as was it Elizabeth who'd just been attacking him? And then Sherry, again, does a brilliant job screaming and pointing at Savage from outside, making it clear that, yeah, no, that was all her handiwork. So you got Savage still unsure what to do. After all, he was a heel, he just lost a retirement match, he'd not been seen on screen with Elizabeth for 2 years, so he takes it in, the moment sinks in, the moment breathes, and then the two share a hug. And man, there is not a dry eye in the house. There's the kid with the glasses and the big gold hat thing. There's the woman in the fancy suit who Bobby Heenan brilliantly says maybe her shoes are too tight. It's just perfect in every single way. A perfect return, a perfect reunion. And as Gorilla Monsoon says, what a woman and what a man, as Savage flips the tables by holding the ropes for Liz to get out of the ring. It's just sad when you learn all these years later that, yeah, Randy and Liz were having problems in their real-life marriage away from the scenes, and it wasn't too long after this before they'd separate. But yes, what a moment. Forever makes me bawl like a baby.
I would say both of Kenny Omega's in AEW. Kenny has become very dear to me. Okay. If I had a parasocial relationship with any professional wrestler, it's Kenny Omega. He will talk at length and in candid, quite alarming detail about his body, what's wrong with it, how, what percentage of it works and what doesn't. And I believe a lot of the time he's quite honest, but he will do this to tell his preferred, and this is ironic because people accuse him of not doing it, sports-oriented stories. So ahead of All Out 2022, which is completely ruined. Thank you very much. Kenny Omega finally started to return on the Dynamites ahead of the big trios title final. And he deliberately played with the compression vest. He looked pale, he didn't tan. He then took the compression vest off to reveal just reams and reams of kinesio tape. He intentionally botched in his first match. He took that absolute bullet from a gun, Dragon Lee suicide dive. It just looked like, why are you taking that bump, Kenny? You don't look ready yet. And then when he returned properly at All Out 2022, like the amount of jewels he had on his gear, the tan, the kinesio tape was off, like the muscles, the abs were able to pop because he was tanned and there was no tape. Like he did a speed run of an injury recovery in storylines. Obviously, he was good to go from day one. He just tortured me and his fans with it. And what really pisses me off is that the guy looked like a demigod at All Out 2022. If you go back and watch that trios match, it's the Elite and Page and the Dark Order. It's stunning. It's absolutely incredible. Hangman Page and Nick Jackson, their chemistry in that match was absolutely like the tightest two wrestlers might have ever worked together in a match that no one remembers, right? It's the Hangman Page, Kenny Omega exchanges where they are so desperate to get at each other that they drag the respective partners to the other side of the ring, tag themselves in. They are flying from one set of ropes to the other to get at each other, like the leaps, the propulsion to just get at each other, the storytelling, the action, the athleticism required to execute the storytelling of we need to settle this again was just absolutely stunning, and no one cared. No one cares. It is the most overlooked, forgotten, incredible match in AEW history because the entire night was forgotten about. And I was just devastated that, yeah. It's Montreal for the 21st century, and yeah, it's very interesting, but come on, please talk more about Kenny's return. Look at all the work he did. Look how much he worked here with the pale body and the no tan and the kinesio tape and the compression vest, and look at the contrast between what he looked like 3 weeks before that. Yeah, it's like the jewels on his gear and look how good he was in the ring. But why is everyone talking about CM Punk? About Kenny. So I was jubilant and then pissed off and then mad online that come on, Kenny's more important than that. And then, for 2 years after that, but people couldn't stop talking about CM Punk. And if you still want to talk about it or read about it, whatculture.com/WWE. The self-destruction of CM Punk in AEW wrestling timelines is available to read. Google it.
So the wrestling return that broke me emotionally was Katsuyori Shibata returning to New Japan Pro Wrestling in the summer of 2017. Contextually, this one was huge because this guy, one of the hardest wrestlers of all time, worked a very stiff style, of course, and unfortunately, this led to him suffering a subdermal, forgive the phrasing, hematoma, following a very impactful match with Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship that April. He busted himself open with a particularly gnarly headbutt, a move he'd been doing very regularly throughout his career. And this unfortunately led to his near demise. I mean, these guys had an epic 37-minute match. Afterwards, Shibata collapses backstage. He's rushed to hospital. It's a very serious situation. In fact, he later disclosed that this was giving him like an 18% chance of survival, let alone recovery or returning to wrestling. So, slim odds. And you're sitting there for 4 months wondering, this is one of my favorite wrestlers, by the way, sitting there for 4 months wondering, are we going to see this guy again? Is he ever going to be back? I mean, obviously, quality of life and survival are more important than any silly wrestling thing. Deeply concerning thing. And then, 4 months later, which hardly seems like any time at all contextually, we're watching the G1 finals. I think we watched it here in the office, actually, because it was on at 9 a.m. or something like that. And halfway through the show, you just hear his music hit, the guitar, boom, 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 boom. And you're like, what the hell? What's this? The entire arena, becomes this confused frenzy, I think is probably the best way of describing it. And after about half a minute of build, out comes Katsuyori Shibata. And he just, in the most him way imaginable, stoic. He breaks and starts crying, but, he stomps down the ring. the first thing he immediately does is take a back bump, which was probably ill-advised. And he pops up and goes, "I am still alive. That is all." And it's quite remarkable. I mean, this is the same, this subdural hematoma. It killed a mixed martial artist named Tim Hague, like a month either before or after Shibata suffered him. And yeah, 18% chance of survival this man had. So completely, I've never seen such an arena of people so just weeping, right? Like collectively. It was like a collective relief and celebration almost. So as I say here in 2025, Shibata has returned to the ring and he's in AEW, and it's like, yeah, he's not the wrestler he used to be, but like, man, just thinking of that period in particular, I can't ever be mad about anything he ever does in wrestling again, you know? He could go out and have the crappiest matches of all time, the safest match, I wouldn't care, because he literally almost died and made his way back into the ring. So very thankful for that whole situation as a fan of his. And yeah, like a really scary thing. I know people like to make memes of the weird Dave Meltzer story about him having his brain taken out in hospital. I always say that's nonsense and makes light of a very serious situation. So glad that he's still alive, kicking, and no longer headbutting.